Hello, and welcome to Times with Shakespeare. I will be your host, as well as Colin Campbell, who's over there. He's trying to get his dog to come in through the doggy door, but she doesn't want to. So welcome to our Time with Shakespeare.
William Shakespeare, the world's most admired and performed playwright and translated playwright, was born in 1564 on April 23rd in Warwickshire, which is about 60 miles northwest of London. According to records of Stratford's Holy Trinity Church, he was baptized on the 26th, which leads scholars to believe that he was born on the 23rd, because usually Shakespeare's parents were John and Mary Shakespeare, and they lived on Henley Street in Stratford. John, the son of Richard, was a widower. He made stuff, he worked on stuff, he sold leather goods such as purses and gloves and shoes and belts and hats and other leather equipments of sorts. He was a very solid upper middle class citizen. He was a very solid upper middle class citizen at the time of William's birth, and he was a man on the rise. He served Stratford government successively as a member of the council in 1557, a constable, a chamberlain, an alderman, and finally a high bailiff, the equivalent of a mayor. Right.
Records for the Stratford Grammar School, the King's New School dedicated by Edward IV, from the time Shakespeare would have attended has been lost. But he did attend since the school was built maintainedly expressively for the purpose of educating the sons of prominent citizens. Also, it was for the more of the upper class citizens. The sons, some of the sons of higher class citizens attended free, and it was a very prestigious school because most of the teachers were actually Oxford teachers. Students his age spent about 9 days in school. During the holidays, Shakespeare liked to watch plays, shows, and including famous one, and most likely Robin Hood. By 1569, traveling bands performed in Stratford, so he also went to the fair with little boys his age and size. As a kid, he hunted and trapped small game, caught fish in the river of Avon, and also his poems show a love for nature and wildlife, which he was exposed to as a kid.
On November 28, 1582, the Bishop of Worcester issued a marriage bond for William Shakespeare and Anne Hathaway of Stratford. This was on November 28, 1582, the Bishop of Worcester issued a marriage bond for William Shakespeare and Anne Hathaway of Stratford. This was, almost beyond doubt, Anne Hathaway, daughter of Richard Hathaway of Shottery, a gathering of farmhouses near Stratford. This was, almost beyond doubt, Anne Hathaway, the daughter of the prestigious Richard Hathaway. On May 26, 1583, William and Anne's first daughter, Susanna, was baptized. 2 years later, twins were born to them, Hamnet and Judith, named after two lifelong friends of Shakespeare. There is no documentary record of Shakespeare's activities from the birth of the twins until Robert Greene's compliment about him as an upstart crow in 1592. Biographers have therefore called these the lost years because there's a lack of information about Shakespeare. In fact, there is nothing certain known about him from his birth until 1592, except that he was married in 1582. Most of what is known about him was assumed because of what happened to most boys his age during the time period. So, not much is known for sure, whereas after 1592, much is known.
Puppy.
The lack of details has not stopped authors from inventing tales to show how Shakespeare got from Stratford as a lonely man up to London as a bustling, working, successful playwright. From the beginning of Shakespeare's career in theater and plays, he has been associated with many different companies and many different play studios. The Queen's Men, Pembroke's Men, and Lord Strange's Men. These were all companies that he wrote for. He must have, in some sense, been a freelance writer because he wrote for many plays, many people, but sold for From the beginning of his career as a writer and theatrical writer, Shakespeare seems to have associated with many companies and many studios. The Queen's Men, Pembroke's Men, Lord Strange's Men, many other companies like this. He worked with several companies and had a great work environment because he associated with many people. However, in 1593, the theaters in London were closed on account of the plague, and for a while, the theaters closed. They were briefly allowed to open during the winter of 1594, but they were closed again in February and remained closed until mid-spring. This period of theatrical closures played havoc with professional acting companies,